You think the universe is judging you, deciding if you are good enough to receive wealth or health. Ernest Holmes revealed the shocking truth. The universe does not judge, it executes. It is a blind, mechanical giant that has only one word in its vocabulary: yes. If you say, "I am rich," it says yes. If you say, "I am broken, miserable," it says yes with equal power. It has no ability to reject your command. This is why your worst fears come true just as easily as your desires, because the machine cannot tell the difference. The creative mind operates without moral preference, without emotional bias, without the capacity to deny. It is the ultimate servant, the perfect executor, the flawless mirror that reflects back to you whatever pattern you impress upon it. Holmes understood what most spiritual seekers miss entirely. You are not being tested by a cosmic judge, you are being obeyed by a cosmic law. The pain you feel is the confusion of praying for relief but getting more trouble instead. You kneel in desperation, you beg for freedom from debt, you plead for an end to loneliness, and yet the debt deepens, the loneliness expands, the suffering multiplies. You are shouting, "I don't want debt," into a canyon that only echoes the last word. The law hears debt and creates it with mathematical precision. You are accidentally programming your own destruction while believing you are being spiritual. This is the tragedy Holmes witnessed in thousands of sincere seekers, good people, faithful people, people who prayed with tears streaming down their faces, yet their lives grew darker with each prayer. They did not understand the mechanism of the automatic yes. They did not realize they were feeding the wrong data into an infallible system. The law does not interpret your intentions, it executes your declarations. When you focus on what you fear, you are giving the machine a blueprint for terror. Holmes promises that once you understand this mechanism, everything changes. You will stop accidentally ordering misery from the menu of infinite possibilities. You will learn to speak the language of the machine with such precision that it produces gold instead of ash, freedom instead of bondage, vitality instead of decay. The giant is not your enemy, it is your servant. But a servant that always obeys is dangerous if you do not know what you are commanding. The promise is this: master the input, and you master the output. Learn the grammar of reality, and you become the author of your fate. This is not mysticism. This is engineering. This is the science of mind that Holmes dedicated his life to perfecting. In this video, we will decode the positive input protocol, the exact method to bypass your own negativity and feed the law, a pure signal that produces only what you desire. You will learn why your current prayers are being answered in reverse, why your affirmations feel hollow, why your visualizations produce nothing but frustration. Holmes left us a precise formula, not a vague philosophy. But there is a fatal linguistic error that must be corrected first, an error so common that 90% of spiritual practitioners commit it daily without knowing they are destroying their own blessings. It is called the negative prayer, and it is the most efficient way to program suffering while thinking you are being holy. I will reveal this grammatical poison in part 4, and I will give you the antidote, the exact phrasing that turns the automatic yes into your greatest ally instead of your hidden saboteur. Before we proceed into the foundation, I need you to make a declaration. If you are ready to stop begging and start commanding, if you are ready to use the law instead of being used by it, then comment below, "I claim the yes." This is not a ritual. This is a signal. You are announcing to the law that you understand its nature. You are no longer approaching it as a petitioner hoping for mercy. You are approaching it as an engineer programming a system. And if you want to continue receiving the blueprints of reality that Ernest Holmes left encoded in his teachings, subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell. The sacred logic requires your full attention, and the algorithm of the universe requires your conscious participation. The central concept that Ernest Holmes brought to humanity is what he called the principle of affirmation. This is not positive thinking in the shallow sense that modern culture has reduced it to. This is a metaphysical law as absolute as gravity. Holmes taught that the creative mind, the universal intelligence, the first cause, the infinite thinker, is entirely positive in its nature. It does not and cannot conceive of lack, absence, or negation. To understand this, you must grasp a fundamental truth about the nature of reality itself. Darkness is not a thing. Darkness is simply the absence of light. Cold is not a substance. It is the absence of heat. Silence is not a sound. It is the absence of vibration. In the same way, poverty is not a creation. It is the absence of wealth. Sickness is not a force. It is the absence of vitality. The creative mind does not create absence. It only creates presence. Therefore, when you pray to be freed from debt, you are asking the law to create something that does not exist in its vocabulary. The law does not understand freedom from debt as a positive creation. It only understands debt as the substance you are focusing upon. You cannot create freedom from something. You can only create the presence of its opposite. This is why Holmes insisted that every treatment, every prayer, every mental work must be phrased in the absolute positive. You do not treat for the removal of disease. You treat for the presence of perfect health. You do not affirm the elimination of poverty. You affirm the manifestation of abundant wealth. This is not semantics. This is the difference between a command the machine can execute and a command that produces only confusion and contradiction. The creative mind operates through a law of correspondence. Whatever pattern you hold in your consciousness, the law reproduces in your experience. If you hold the pattern of lack, the law faithfully creates more lack. If you hold the pattern of struggle, the law generates more struggle. It is not punishing you, it is obeying you. Holmes understood that most human suffering is not caused by external forces or divine judgment, but by the unconscious misuse of this automatic yes. People are praying for relief while mentally rehearsing their problems. They are affirming abundance while emotionally dwelling in scarcity. The law reads the dominant vibration, the strongest impression, the clearest blueprint, and that is what it builds. This is why Holmes rejected the traditional model of prayer as begging or supplication. He saw prayer as a scientific process of impressing a definite pattern upon the universal substance. You are not asking permission from a distant deity. You are activating a law that has no choice but to respond. The law does not care about your worthiness. It does not evaluate your morality. It does not decide whether you deserve what you are claiming. It simply takes the mold you provide and pours the substance of reality into that mold. If the mold is shaped like prosperity, you get prosperity. If the mold is shaped like disaster, you get disaster. The law is blind, mechanical, and absolutely faithful. Holmes called this the divine affirmative, the eternal yes that the universe speaks to every thought, every word, every mental image you consistently hold. The universe is not selective. It does not say yes to your desires and no to your fears. It says yes to everything. This is the most liberating and most terrifying truth in all of metaphysics. You are not waiting for permission. You already have it. The giant has already agreed. The question is, what are you commanding? What blueprint are you handing to the architect of reality? Most people are unconsciously designing their own prisons while consciously praying for freedom. They are impressing patterns of limitation upon the infinite, and then wondering why their lives feel so small. The principle of affirmation demands that you become ruthlessly conscious of what you are affirming, not just with your words, but with your dominant mental atmosphere. You can say, "I am wealthy" 1,000 times, but if your inner dialogue is constantly rehearsing bills, debts, and financial anxiety, the law reads the anxiety as the true command. The words are irrelevant if the feeling contradicts them. Holmes taught that effective treatment requires alignment. Your thought, your word, and your feeling must all point in the same direction. They must all affirm the same positive reality. When this alignment occurs, the law has no choice but to manifest that reality. It is not a matter of hope or faith in the religious sense. It is a matter of scientific precision. Consider the nature of the creative mind as Holmes described it. It is infinite, omnipresent, and entirely impersonal. It does not love you more than it loves anyone else. It does not favor the righteous over the wicked. It operates through law, not through emotion. This is why good people suffer and bad people prosper, because the law does not judge moral character. It executes mental patterns. A criminal who affirms wealth with absolute conviction will become wealthy. A saint who affirms poverty with equal conviction will remain poor. The law does not care about your spiritual resume. It cares only about the clarity and consistency of your mental impression. This is the cold, hard logic that Holmes forced his students to accept. You cannot charm the law. You cannot manipulate it with rituals or bargains. You can only use it correctly or incorrectly. The affirmative principle also explains why negation is impossible within the law. You cannot affirm a negative. You cannot create non-existence. You can only create existence. When you say, "I am not sick," the law does not register the not. It registers sick as the subject of your attention. When you say, "I will not fail," the law hears fail as the dominant concept. This is why Holmes insisted on absolute linguistic discipline. Every statement must be framed in terms of what you are creating, not what you are avoiding. Every thought must be directed toward presence, not absence. Every mental image must depict the desired reality as already accomplished, not as something you are trying to escape from. This is the foundation upon which all of Holmes's teachings rest. The universe is a yes universe. It has no mechanism for denial. It has no capacity for refusal. It is the ultimate affirmation of whatever you persistently impress upon it. Once you understand this, you realize that you have never been powerless. You have only been unconscious. You have been using the law against yourself, affirming your problems with more intensity than your solutions, declaring your limitations with more conviction than your possibilities. The giant has been saying yes to your worst thoughts because you have been feeding it those thoughts as commands. But the moment you change the input, the output changes with mathematical certainty. This is not magic. This is law. Holmes spent decades refining this principle, testing it, proving it in the lives of thousands of students. He saw miraculous healings, financial transformations, relationship restorations, not because God decided to intervene, but because individuals learned to use the law correctly. They stopped fighting their problems and started affirming their solutions. They stopped dwelling in the negative and started living in the positive. They stopped begging for change and started commanding it. And the law, being incapable of saying no, produced exactly what they commanded. This is the power that Holmes placed in your hands. This is the mechanism that operates whether you believe in it or not. The only question is, will you use it consciously, or will you continue to use it unconsciously against yourself? The principle of affirmation is not a technique you apply occasionally. It is a way of life. It is a discipline of consciousness that requires constant vigilance. You must monitor your thoughts the way a chemist monitors a formula. One drop of the wrong substance, one moment of negative focus, and the entire mixture becomes toxic. But when you maintain the purity of your affirmation, when you keep your mental atmosphere saturated with the positive reality you are creating, the law has no choice but to manifest that reality in your physical experience. This is the foundation. This is the bedrock upon which we will now build the architecture of your transformation. The giant is waiting. The yes is ready. The only question remaining is, what will you affirm? The unshakable logic of this system becomes crystal clear when Holmes uses the analogy of the soil and the seed. The soil does not care if you plant corn or nightshade, a flower or a weed, nourishment or poison. It feeds both with the same energy, the same nutrients, the same life force. It does not say, "Stop, this is poison." It does not discriminate based on the outcome. It simply grows whatever seed you plant with absolute impartiality. Your subconscious mind is the soil. Your conscious thought is the seed. If you plant fear, the law faithfully grows a forest of terror. If you plant doubt, it cultivates a garden of failure. It is not punishing you for your negative thoughts. It is obeying you. It is fulfilling its function with perfect precision. This analogy destroys the notion that the universe is against you, or that you are cursed, or that some external force is blocking your good. Holmes wanted you to see the mechanical nature of this process. The soil does not have opinions. It does not have preferences. It does not decide which seeds deserve to grow and which do not. It is a medium of pure responsiveness. The subconscious mind operates in exactly the same way. It accepts every thought you consistently impress upon it and translates that thought into physical form. If you impress thoughts of abundance, it produces abundance. If you impress thoughts of scarcity, it produces scarcity. The law is neutral. The power is neutral. The outcome depends entirely on what you plant. Most people are planting weeds and praying for roses. They are impressing patterns of failure into the subconscious while consciously wishing for success. They are feeding the soil with seeds of anxiety, resentment, and self-pity, then wondering why their lives are filled with chaos and disappointment. Holmes saw this contradiction in every person who came to him for help. They would describe their problems in vivid detail, rehearsing every injustice, every hardship, every fear, and in doing so, they were planting more of the same. The soil was simply doing its job. The law was simply saying yes to the dominant seed. The problem was not the law. The problem was the planter. Holmes taught that once you understand this logic, you can never again claim to be a victim. You are not a victim of circumstances. You are a victim of your own habitual thought patterns. You are not suffering because the universe is cruel. You are suffering because you have been unconsciously planting the seeds of suffering. This is a harsh truth, but it is also a liberating one. If you cause the problem through ignorance, you can solve the problem through knowledge. If you planted the wrong seeds, you can plant the right ones. The soil does not hold grudges. The law does not remember your past mistakes. It only responds to your present command. The moment you change the seed, the harvest changes. This is why Holmes insisted on absolute responsibility. You cannot blame your parents, your upbringing, your genetics, your economy, or your government for the state of your life. All of those things may be factors, but they are not causes. The only cause is your habitual use of the law. You are the thinker. You are the planter. You are the one who decides what seeds go into the soil of your subconscious. And because the law is impersonal and mechanical, it will grow whatever you plant without judgment or interference. This is the most empowering and most demanding truth in all of spiritual science. You have all the power, and you have all the responsibility. Consider the implications of this logic. If the law says yes to everything, then there is no such thing as a prayer that goes unanswered. Every prayer is answered. The question is, what are you really praying for? If you pray with desperation, you are affirming the reality of lack, and the law says yes to lack. If you pray with gratitude, you are affirming the reality of abundance, and the law says yes to abundance. The emotional tone of your prayer is the seed. The words are secondary. Holmes taught that effective prayer is not about convincing God to give you something. It is about convincing yourself that you already have it. It is about impressing the subconscious with the feeling of fulfillment, so that the law can reproduce that fulfillment in your external world. The soil analogy also reveals why time is required for manifestation. A seed does not become a tree overnight. It must be planted, watered, and given time to germinate. If you dig up the seed every day to check if it is growing, you kill it. In the same way, once you impress a thought upon the subconscious, you must leave it alone. You must trust the law to do its work. If you constantly doubt, if you constantly check for evidence, if you constantly worry that it is not working, you are digging up the seed. You are interrupting the process. Holmes called this treating and then retreating. You do the mental work, and then you walk away with the calm certainty that the law is now in motion. You do not obsess, you do not beg, you do not panic, you simply know. This logic also explains why some people seem to have natural luck while others struggle. The person with natural luck is unconsciously planting positive seeds. Their default mental atmosphere is one of confidence, optimism, and expectation of good. The law responds to this atmosphere and produces a life of ease and opportunity. The person who struggles is unconsciously planting negative seeds. Their default mental atmosphere is one of fear, pessimism, and expectation of disaster. The law responds to this atmosphere and produces a life of hardship and limitation. Neither person is more deserving than the other. Neither person is being rewarded or punished by a cosmic judge. Both are simply receiving the harvest of their habitual thought patterns. Holmes wanted you to see that the law is not mysterious. It is not magical. It is as predictable as agriculture. If you plant corn, you get corn. If you plant nightshade, you get nightshade. If you plant thoughts of health, you get health. If you plant thoughts of disease, you get disease. The law does not make exceptions. It does not play favorites. It does not care about your excuses or your justifications. It simply grows what you plant. This is the unshakable logic that makes the science of mind a science and not a superstition. You can test it, you can prove it, you can rely on it with the same confidence you rely on the law of gravity. The soil will always grow the seed. The law will always say, yes. The only variable is you. Therefore, the solution to every problem in your life is to change the seed. Stop planting fear and start planting faith. Stop planting lack and start planting abundance. Stop planting resentment and start planting gratitude. The soil does not care about your past. It does not care about your mistakes. It only cares about what you are planting right now, in this moment. And because the law is always operating, because the subconscious is always creating, you have the opportunity in every single moment to plant a new seed and begin a new harvest. This is the promise of the automatic yes. This is the power that Holmes placed in your hands. The giant is waiting for your command. The soil is ready for your seed. What will you plant today? The logic is unshakable because it is based on observation, not belief. Holmes did not invent this law. He discovered it. He saw it operating in nature, in human psychology and the rise and fall of civilizations. He saw that those who think prosperously become prosperous. Those who think sickly become sick. Those who think failure become failures. The correlation is absolute. The causation is undeniable. And once you see this logic, you cannot unsee it. You cannot go back to blaming external forces for your internal creations. You cannot go back to playing the victim when you are clearly the creator. The soil and the seed, this is the foundation. This is the logic. This is the law that Ernest Holmes decoded for you. Now the question is, will you use it? The required mental state for activating the automatic yes is what Holmes called definiteness. You cannot be vague, you cannot be wishy-washy, you cannot approach the law with uncertainty or ambiguity. A machine requires specific coordinates. A computer requires precise code. The creative mind requires a clear, definite, unambiguous command. If you say, I want to be kind of successful, or I hope things get better, you are feeding the machine static, not signal. The law does not respond to wishes. It does not respond to hopes. It does not respond to vague desires floating in the ether of your consciousness. It responds only to definite declarations, to clear mental images, to commands spoken with the authority of one who knows. Definiteness begins with the shift from wishing to claiming. Wishing implies that you do not have what you desire. It implies that you are separated from your good, that you are on the outside looking in, that you are hoping the universe will notice you and throw you a bone. This is the consciousness of a beggar, and the law treats you as a beggar. It says yes to your begging and produces more situations in which you must beg. Claiming, on the other hand, implies ownership. It implies that what you desire already belongs to you, that you are simply calling it forth from the invisible into the visible, that you are activating a law that must obey. This is the consciousness of a master, and the law treats you as a master. It says yes to your mastery and produces the evidence of that mastery in your experience. Holmes taught that the universe does not withhold anything from you. It is not waiting for you to prove yourself worthy. It is not testing your patience or your faith. It is simply waiting for a clear command. The moment you give that command with definiteness, the law begins to execute. But if your command is muddled with doubt, contradicted by fear, or diluted with uncertainty, the law receives a corrupted signal. It is like trying to download a file with a broken internet connection. The transmission is incomplete. The manifestation is distorted. You get a partial result, a twisted version of what you wanted or nothing at all. This is not because the law failed. It is because you failed to provide a clean input. Definiteness also requires that you move from the general to the specific. Do not say, I want more money. The law does not know what more means. More than what? More by how much? More for what purpose? You must specify. I have a consistent monthly income of $10,000. Now the law has a blueprint it can work with. Now the machine has coordinates it can execute. Holmes was adamant about this. Vague treatments produce vague results. Specific treatments produce specific results. If you want precision in your life, you must be precise in your thought. If you want clarity in your experience, you must be clear in your command. The state of definiteness is not something you achieve once and then forget about. It is a discipline you must maintain throughout the entire process of manifestation. You must hold the definite image in your mind with the same consistency that an architect holds the blueprint of a building. If the architect changes the design every day, the building never gets built. If you change your mental image every day, your desire never manifests. You must commit to a single, clear, definite vision and refuse to deviate from it. This is what Holmes meant by treating until you demonstrate. You do not stop the mental work just because the physical evidence has not yet appeared. You continue to hold the definite pattern until the law has no choice but to reproduce it. Definiteness also means eliminating all contradictory thoughts. You cannot affirm abundance in the morning and worry about bills in the afternoon. You cannot declare perfect health and then spend the evening complaining about your symptoms. Every contradictory thought is a command to the law. Every moment of doubt is a seed planted in the soil of the subconscious. If you plant 10 seeds of faith and 100 seeds of fear, the harvest will be fear. The law does not average your thoughts. It responds to the dominant pattern, the strongest impression, the most consistent vibration. Therefore, definiteness requires vigilance. You must guard your mind the way a soldier guards a fortress. You must refuse entry to every thought that contradicts your definite aim. Holmes also taught that definiteness is not the same as rigidity. You are not forcing the law to obey you. You are not manipulating reality through sheer willpower. You are simply providing a clear pattern and then allowing the law to do its work. There is a difference between definite intention and desperate control. Definite intention is calm, confident, and certain. Desperate control is tense, anxious, and fearful. The law responds to the former and rejects the latter. When you are definite, you know that the outcome is inevitable. You do not need to push. You do not need to strain. You simply hold the pattern and trust the process. This is the paradox of spiritual power. The more certain you are, the less effort you need. The state of definiteness also affects how you speak. Your words must align with your vision. If you are treating for wealth, you cannot say, "I'm broke," even as a joke. If you are treating for health, you cannot say, "I feel terrible," even in casual conversation. Holmes understood that every word is a decree. Every sentence is a command to the law. The universe is listening to everything you say, and it is saying yes to all of it. Therefore, you must become a master of your own language. You must speak only words that affirm your definite aim. You must refuse to participate in conversations that contradict your vision. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. You are aligning your speech with the law so that the law can align your experience with your desire. Definiteness is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. It is the mechanism by which thought becomes thing. Without it, you are simply daydreaming. With it, you are activating a law that must produce results. Holmes saw this in every successful person he studied. They all had one thing in common. They knew exactly what they wanted and they refused to compromise on that vision. They did not scatter their energy across a dozen different goals. They did not dilute their focus with endless options. They chose one definite aim, impressed it upon the law with absolute clarity, and then watched as the universe rearranged itself to match their command. This is the power of definiteness. This is the state you must cultivate if you want the automatic yes to work in your favor. Therefore, before you proceed to the execution of the affirmative protocol, you must first establish definiteness in your own consciousness. You must decide exactly what you want to create. You must form a clear mental image of that reality. You must commit to that image with unwavering focus. And you must eliminate every thought, word, and emotion that contradicts that image. This is the preparation. This is the mental groundwork that makes manifestation inevitable. Without definiteness, you are trying to build a house without a blueprint. With definiteness, you are handing the architect of reality a perfect design and commanding it to build. The law will obey. The giant will say yes. But first, you must know what you are asking for. The execution of the affirmative protocol is a three-step process that Holmes refined through decades of practice. This is not theory. This is not philosophy. This is the exact method by which you impress a definite pattern upon the law and activate the automatic yes. The first step is what Holmes called the erasure. You must stop the no. You must cease all language, all thought, all focus that emphasizes what you are trying to avoid. This is the most difficult step because human beings are conditioned to define themselves by their problems. You have been trained since childhood to think in terms of lack, limitation, and struggle. You have been taught to fight against what you do not want rather than claim what you do want. This conditioning must be erased. The erasure begins with a brutal inventory of your habitual speech. Listen to yourself for one day. Count how many times you say, I don't want, I can't, I won't, I'm trying not to, or any variation of negation. Each of these statements is a command to the law. Each of these statements is a seed planted in the soil of the subconscious. And because the law is affirmative, it strips away the negation and responds to the core subject. When you say, I don't want to be in debt, the law hears debt as the focus of your attention and produces more debt. When you say, I can't afford this, the law hears can't afford as your dominant reality and produces more situations in which you cannot afford things. You are accidentally programming your own poverty while thinking you are being responsible. Holmes insisted that you must replace every negative statement with its positive opposite. Instead of, I want to get out of debt, you say, I have financial freedom. Instead of, I want to lose weight, you say, I have a healthy, vital body. Instead of, I want to stop being lonely, you say, I am surrounded by love and meaningful connection. Do you see the difference? The first set of statements focuses on the problem. The law says yes to the problem. The second set of statements focuses on the solution. The law says yes to the solution. This is not wordplay. This is the difference between success and failure, between manifestation and frustration, between using the law correctly and using it against yourself. The erasure also applies to your internal dialogue. You must stop the mental rehearsal of your problems. You must stop replaying past failures. You must stop imagining worst-case scenarios. Every time you do this, you are feeding the machine a blueprint for disaster. You are telling the law, this is what I want to create, even though consciously you want the opposite. Holmes taught that the subconscious does not distinguish between a real memory and an imagined scenario. It treats both as instructions. Therefore, if you spend 10 minutes a day affirming abundance but 2 hours a day worrying about bills, the law will respond to the 2 hours. The dominant pattern wins. The erasure is about shifting the balance. You must spend more time affirming the positive than dwelling on the negative. This step requires discipline. It requires constant self-correction. Every time you catch yourself saying or thinking something negative, you must immediately stop and rephrase. You must become your own mental editor, your own thought police, your own guardian of the gate. Holmes compared this to training a muscle. At first it feels awkward and forced, but with practice, it becomes automatic. Eventually, you will no longer default to negative language. You will naturally think and speak in the affirmative, and when that happens, the law will have no choice but to reflect that affirmative consciousness back to you in the form of an affirmative life. The second step of the affirmative protocol is the definition. Once you have stopped the no, you must state the yes. This is where definiteness becomes critical. You must articulate exactly what you are creating in clear, present tense, positive language. Holmes taught that effective affirmations are always stated as if the desired reality already exists. You do not say, I will be healthy. That places your health in the future, which means it never arrives. You say, I am healthy now. You do not say, I am going to be wealthy. You say, I am wealthy now. This is not lying. This is impressing the law with the pattern you want it to manifest. You are giving the machine a blueprint of something that is, not something that might be. The definition must be specific, sensory, and emotionally charged. It is not enough to say, I am wealthy. You must define what wealth looks like, feels like, sounds like in your experience. I have a consistent monthly income of $10,000. I feel the relief and freedom of financial security. I see my bank account growing. I hear myself saying yes to opportunities without hesitation. The more vivid the definition, the stronger the impression on the subconscious. Holmes taught that the law responds to feeling more than words. If you can generate the feeling of already having what you desire, the law will produce the circumstances that match that feeling. This is why visualization is so powerful. It allows you to rehearse the feeling of fulfillment before the physical evidence appears. The definition also requires consistency. You cannot affirm one thing today and something completely different tomorrow. You must choose your definite aim and stay with it. Holmes recommended writing down your affirmation and reading it every morning and every night. This repetition impresses the pattern deeper into the subconscious with each reading. It is like carving a channel in stone. The first pass makes a shallow mark. The 100th pass creates a deep groove. Eventually, the groove becomes so deep that the water of your thought flows automatically in that direction. This is when manifestation becomes effortless. The law has accepted your pattern as the dominant reality, and it begins to produce evidence of that reality without any further effort on your part. The third and final step of the affirmative protocol is the acceptance. Holmes taught that every treatment must end with a statement of completion. The most common phrase he used was, "And so it is." This is not a ritual. This is not a magic spell. This is the enter key on the keyboard of reality. It signals to the law that the input is finished and production must begin. When you say, "And so it is," you are declaring that the work is done. You are not hoping it will happen. You are not wishing it will happen. You are stating that it has already happened in the invisible realm of cause, and now it must appear in the visible realm of effect. This is the seal. This is the final command that activates the automatic yes. The acceptance also requires that you walk away with what Holmes called the chill of accomplishment. This is the feeling you have when you know something is done. It is the same feeling you have after placing an order online. You do not sit by the door waiting for the package to arrive. You do not call the company every hour to confirm they received your order. You simply trust that the system is working and the package will arrive in due time. This is how you must treat the law. Once you have impressed your definite pattern, once you have stated your affirmation, once you have sealed it with acceptance, you must let it go. You must trust the process. You must walk away with calm certainty, knowing that the law is now in motion and the manifestation is inevitable. This does not mean you become passive. It means you become receptive. You continue to live your life, take inspired action, and follow opportunities as they arise. But you do so from a place of confidence, not desperation. You do so knowing that the universe is rearranging itself to match your command. Holmes taught that the law works through natural channels. It does not drop money from the sky. It does not create health through magic. It works through people, circumstances, ideas, and opportunities that align with your definite aim. Your job is to remain open, alert, and ready to act when those channels appear. But you do not force, you do not strain, you simply allow the law to do its work while you do yours. The affirmative protocol is complete when you can hold your vision with absolute certainty, speak your affirmation with unwavering conviction, and walk away with total peace. This is the state of mastery. This is the consciousness that activates the automatic yes with maximum power. Holmes saw this in every student who achieved dramatic results. They did not beg. They did not plead. They did not worry. They simply impressed the law with a definite pattern, sealed it with acceptance, and then went about their lives with the calm assurance that the universe was now working on their behalf. And without fail, the manifestation appeared. This is the architecture. This is the method. This is the execution that turns thought into thing. The fatal mistakes that destroy most people's attempts to use the law are rooted in what Holmes identified as the negative prayer. This is the most common error in spiritual practice, and it is the reason why so many sincere seekers fail to demonstrate results. The first and most devastating mistake is begging God. When you approach the law with desperation, when you plead for relief, when you say, "Please God, I need this so badly," you are affirming the reality of need. The law does not hear your words. It reads your vibration, and the vibration of begging is the vibration of lack. You are telling the universe, I do not have this, I am separated from my good, I am powerless and desperate. The law, being incapable of saying no, responds with yes to your lack, your separation, and your powerlessness. It produces more situations in which you must beg. Holmes was revolutionary in his insistence that we do not beseech the law, we use it. The law is not a deity that requires flattery or supplication. It is not a king that must be convinced of your worthiness. It is a principle like electricity or gravity. You do not beg electricity to power your home. You simply flip the switch. You do not plead with gravity to keep you on the ground. You simply trust that it will. In the same way, you do not beg the creative mind for abundance or health. You simply impress the pattern and trust the law to execute. This is the shift from religion to science, from superstition to knowledge, from victim to master. When you beg, you are positioning yourself as inferior to the law. When you command with gratitude, you are positioning yourself as a co-creator with the law. The energy of begging is rooted in fear. It is the fear that the universe will say no. It is the fear that you are not good enough, not worthy enough, not deserving enough to receive what you desire. But Holmes revealed that the universe cannot say no. It has no mechanism for denial. The only no you ever hear is the echo of your own doubt. When you beg, you are affirming that doubt. You are telling the law, I believe I might not receive this, and the law says yes to your belief. It manifests the very rejection you fear. This is the cruel irony of the negative prayer. You think you are being humble and spiritual by begging, but you are actually programming failure. You are using the law against yourself while thinking you are being pious. Holmes taught that the correct approach is to pray with authority. You do not ask for what you want. You claim what is already yours. You do not say, please give me health. You say, I accept perfect health now. You do not say, I hope I will be prosperous. You say, I am prosperous now. This is not arrogance, this is alignment with the law. You are speaking the language of the machine. You are providing a definite command that the law can execute. And because you are claiming rather than begging, you are affirming the reality of abundance rather than the reality of lack. The law says yes to your claim and produces evidence of that claim in your experience. The second fatal mistake is what Holmes called the but cancel. This is the subtle sabotage that occurs when you affirm something positive and then immediately negate it with a contradictory statement. I am wealthy, but the economy is bad. I am healthy, but my symptoms are still here. I am loved, but I am alone right now. Every time you use the word but, you erase everything that came before it. The law does not hear the affirmation, it only hears the contradiction. You are feeding the machine two opposite commands, and the law always executes the part after the but, because that is where your true belief resides. You do not really believe you are wealthy if you are worried about the economy. You do not really believe you are healthy if you are focused on your symptoms. The but reveals your doubt, and doubt is a command to the law. Holmes insisted that you must eliminate all contradictory language from your speech. If you affirm something, you must stand by it without qualification. You cannot hedge, you cannot add disclaimers. You cannot protect yourself from disappointment by keeping one foot in the old reality. This is what most people do. They affirm abundance while simultaneously preparing for lack. They claim health while simultaneously planning for sickness. They declare success while simultaneously expecting failure. And the law, reading the dominant vibration, produces the reality they are secretly expecting, rather than the reality they are consciously affirming. The but is the trapdoor through which your manifestation escapes. The correction for this mistake is simple but difficult. You must become aware of every time you use the word but and replace it with and, or eliminate it entirely. I am wealthy, and I trust the universe to provide regardless of external circumstances. I am healthy, and I know my body is healing even if I do not yet see the evidence. Do you see the difference? The first version affirms and then negates. The second version affirms and then reinforces. The law can work with the second version, it cannot work with the first. Holmes taught that spiritual practice is largely a matter of linguistic discipline. You must learn to speak in a way that aligns with the law rather than contradicts it. This requires constant vigilance, but the results are worth the effort. The master's tips that Holmes left for advanced practitioners center on one core understanding. The universe is a yes universe. It has no power to say no to you unless you say no to yourself. This is the ultimate truth that unlocks all of Holmes's teachings. You are not fighting against a resistant universe. You're not trying to convince a reluctant God. You are simply working with a law that always agrees. The only obstacle to your good is your own habitual negation. The only barrier to your success is your own unconscious self-rejection. If you can eliminate the no from your own consciousness, there is no force in the universe that can prevent your manifestation. Holmes also taught that the speed of manifestation is directly proportional to the purity of your affirmation. The more consistently you hold the positive pattern, the faster the law can reproduce it. If you affirm abundance for 5 minutes and then worry about bills for 55 minutes, the manifestation will be slow and weak. But if you can maintain the affirmative consciousness for the majority of your waking hours, the manifestation will be rapid and powerful. This is why Holmes recommended frequent short treatments throughout the day, rather than one long session. You are training your mind to default to the affirmative. You are building a new habit of thought that becomes automatic over time. Another master tip is to treat for others as you would treat for yourself. When you affirm abundance for someone else, you are also affirming it for yourself. When you see perfection in another, you are training your mind to see perfection everywhere. Holmes taught that the law is impersonal, but your use of it expands your own consciousness. The more you practice affirmative thinking for others, the more natural it becomes for yourself. This is why he encouraged his students to do daily treatments, not only for their own good but for the good of the world. You are not just creating your own reality, you are raising the collective consciousness every time you affirm the positive. Holmes also warned against the trap of spiritual pride. Some students, once they understand the law, begin to judge others who are suffering. They think that person is just using the law incorrectly and feel superior. This is a subtle form of negation. When you judge another, you are affirming separation and lack. You are saying, I have and they do not, which is a dualistic thought that contradicts the unity of the law. Holmes taught that true mastery is compassionate. You understand that everyone is using the law, but most are using it unconsciously. Your job is not to judge them, but to hold the vision of their perfection until they can see it for themselves. This is the highest form of spiritual practice. Finally, Holmes emphasized that the automatic yes is not a tool for manipulation or control. You cannot use the law to force others to do your will. You cannot affirm that a specific person will love you or that a specific company will hire you. The law works through the path of least resistance, and if your desire requires violating someone else's free will, the manifestation will be distorted or blocked. Instead, you affirm the essence of what you desire. You do not say, John must love me. You say, I am loved by the perfect partner for me. You do not say, this company must hire me. You say, I have the perfect job that utilizes my talents and pays me abundantly. This allows the law to work through natural channels and bring you what you truly desire without forcing or manipulating. These master's tips are the refinements that separate the novice from the expert. They are the subtle adjustments that turn a weak treatment into a powerful one, a slow manifestation into a rapid one, a distorted result into a perfect one. Holmes spent his life testing these principles, and he left them for you as a gift. The universe is always saying yes. The only question is, what are you asking for? And are you asking in a way that the law can execute? Refine your language, refine your thought, refine your consciousness, and watch as the automatic yes transforms your life with mathematical precision. The connection between Holmes's teachings and modern computer science is striking and undeniable. There is a principle in programming known as GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. It means that the quality of the output is determined by the quality of the input. If you write a line of code with a syntax error, the program crashes. If you input incorrect data, the system produces incorrect results. It is not the computer's fault. The computer is simply executing the instructions it receives. The creative mind operates exactly like a supercomputer. If you write a line of thought with a syntax error, fear, doubt, negation, the program of your life crashes. It is not the universe's fault. The universe is simply executing the instructions you provide. Holmes was decoding the programming language of reality long before computers existed. He understood that consciousness is code. Every thought is a line of instruction. Every belief is a subroutine that runs in the background of your life. Every emotion is a variable that affects the output. If your code is clean, precise, and affirmative, the program runs smoothly and produces the desired result. If your code is corrupted with bugs, negative beliefs, contradictory affirmations, habitual worry, the program produces errors, glitches, and crashes. You are the coder. Reality is the screen. The law is the compiler that translates your code into physical experience. If you do not like what you see on the screen, you must debug the code. This analogy also explains why some people seem to have a natural talent for manifestation, while others struggle. The naturally talented person has clean code. Their default programming is positive, confident, and expectant of good. They were either born with this code, or they acquired it through early conditioning. The person who struggles has corrupted code. Their default programming is negative, fearful, and expectant of disaster. They were conditioned by trauma, poverty, or negative influences to write bad code. But here is the liberating truth. Code can be rewritten. You are not stuck with the programming you inherited. You can debug your consciousness. You can delete the old subroutines and install new ones. This is what Holmes called spiritual mind treatment. It is the process of rewriting the code of your subconscious so that the law can produce a different output. The Gigo principle also explains why affirmations sometimes fail. If you affirm I am wealthy, but your underlying belief code says I am unworthy of wealth, the two lines of code contradict each other. The program cannot execute. The law receives a corrupted signal and produces a distorted result. This is why Holmes insisted on going deeper than surface-level affirmations. You must identify and delete the contradictory code at the subconscious level. You must find the hidden bugs, the limiting beliefs, the childhood wounds, the inherited patterns, and overwrite them with new affirmative code. This is not a one-time process. It is an ongoing practice of debugging and upgrading your mental software. Holmes also understood that the law operates with binary logic. It does not interpret shades of gray. It responds to yes or no, presence or absence, affirmation or negation. If your code says yes to abundance, the law produces abundance. If your code says no to abundance, even unconsciously, the law produces lack. There is no middle ground. This is why clarity is so critical. You must make sure that all of your code, conscious and subconscious, is pointing in the same direction. You cannot have one part of your code affirming wealth while another part is affirming poverty. The law will execute the dominant code, and if the dominant code is contradictory, the output will be chaotic. The computer analogy also reveals the importance of repetition. In programming, you often need to run a loop, a repeated instruction to accomplish a task. In the same way, you must repeat your affirmations until they overwrite the old code. One affirmation is like one line of code. It makes a small change, but 1,000 repetitions create a new subroutine that runs automatically. This is why Holmes recommended daily treatments. You are not just stating what you want once and walking away. You are installing new software through consistent repetition. Eventually, the new code becomes the default, and the law begins to produce results that match the new programming without any further effort on your part. Holmes would have loved the computer age because it provides the perfect metaphor for his teachings. You are the programmer. Your thoughts are the code. The subconscious is the hard drive. The law is the operating system. And reality is the output displayed on the screen of your life. If you want to change the output, you must change the code. You must learn to write clean, precise, affirmative instructions that the law can execute without error. This is not mysticism. This is software engineering applied to consciousness. And just as a skilled programmer can create any application they desire, a skilled practitioner of the science of mind can create any life they desire. The power is in your hands. The keyboard is your consciousness. The universe is waiting for your command. What program will you write today? The Gigo principle is not just a technical concept. It is a spiritual law. It is the reason why you cannot afford to be sloppy with your thoughts. Every thought is input. Every word is input. Every belief is input. And the law, like a faithful computer, produces output that exactly matches the input. If you input garbage, fear, resentment, self-pity, you get garbage in your life. If you input gold, faith, gratitude, affirmation, you get gold in your life. Holmes was showing you that the universe is not mysterious or capricious. It is a system, a law, a mechanism that operates with perfect consistency. Once you understand the system, you can use it deliberately. Once you learn the programming language, you can write any code you want. This is the validation of the science of mind. It works because it is based on law, not luck. It works because it is science, not superstition. It works because you are the coder, and reality is simply the execution of your code. The anecdote that perfectly illustrates the power of the automatic yes is the story of a woman who came to Holmes in desperation. She had been praying every single day for years to not be lonely. She focused entirely on her loneliness. She described it in vivid detail. She felt it deeply. She made it the center of her spiritual practice. And yet, year after year, her loneliness only deepened. She became more isolated, more withdrawn, more convinced that she was destined to be alone. She could not understand why God was not answering her prayers. She was sincere. She was faithful. She was doing everything she thought was right, but the loneliness persisted and grew stronger. Holmes listened to her story and immediately identified the problem. She was praying a negative prayer. Every time she said, "I don't want to be lonely," the law heard lonely as the dominant word. Every time she focused on her isolation, she was impressing the pattern of isolation deeper into her subconscious. She was affirming the very thing she was trying to escape. The law, being incapable of saying no, was faithfully saying yes to her loneliness. It was producing more situations in which she felt alone, more circumstances that reinforced her isolation, more evidence that confirmed her belief that she was unlovable. She was not being punished. She was being obeyed. Holmes gave her a new treatment. He told her to stop all focus on loneliness immediately. She was to never again say the words, "I am lonely," or "I don't want to be alone." Instead, she was to affirm every single day, "I am surrounded by love and friendship. I am connected to the perfect people for me. I radiate warmth and attract meaningful relationships." She was to visualize herself laughing with friends, feeling loved, enjoying deep connection. She was to speak as if the loneliness had already been replaced by community. She was to think only about connection, never about isolation. This was not denial. This was redirection. She was planting a new seed in the soil of her subconscious. At first it felt false. She was still physically alone. The evidence had not yet changed. But Holmes told her that the evidence is always the last thing to change. The law works from the inside out, not the outside in. She must hold the new pattern in her consciousness until the law has time to reproduce it in her experience. She committed to the practice. Every morning and every night she affirmed her new reality. Every time a thought of loneliness arose, she immediately replaced it with a thought of connection. She stopped telling the story of her isolation and started telling the story of her belonging. She was rewriting the code. Within 3 weeks, something shifted. A neighbor she had never spoken to invited her to a community event. She went, reluctantly at first, but found herself enjoying the company. She met someone at that event who introduced her to a book club. At the book club, she met a man who shared her interests, her values, her sense of humor. They began spending time together. Within 3 months, they were inseparable. Within a year, they were married. She later told Holmes that it felt like the universe had suddenly opened up and poured love into her life. But Holmes corrected her. The universe had not changed. She had changed. She had stopped affirming loneliness and started affirming connection. The law simply said yes to her new command and rearranged her circumstances to match. This story is not unique. Holmes saw this pattern repeat itself thousands of times in his practice. People who prayed to escape poverty remained poor until they started affirming wealth. People who prayed to be healed from disease remained sick until they started affirming health. People who prayed for relief from suffering continued to suffer until they started affirming peace. The law does not respond to what you are trying to avoid. It responds to what you are claiming as real. The woman's transformation was not a miracle. It was the inevitable result of using the law correctly. She stopped feeding the machine a blueprint for isolation and started feeding it a blueprint for connection. The machine, being incapable of saying no, built what she commanded. The lesson here is profound. You are not waiting for the universe to change. You are waiting for yourself to change. The moment you change your dominant mental pattern, the law begins to produce a different result. It does not matter how long you have been suffering. It does not matter how deep your problems seem. The law does not care about your history. It only cares about your present command. The woman had been lonely for years, but her loneliness ended the moment she stopped affirming it and started affirming its opposite. This is the power of the automatic yes. This is the validation that Holmes offers you. The law works. It works every time. It works for everyone. The only variable is whether you are using it consciously or unconsciously, correctly or incorrectly. Holmes would tell you that if you are suffering in any area of your life, you are unconsciously affirming that suffering. You are planting seeds of pain and wondering why your harvest is bitter. But the moment you become conscious, the moment you take responsibility for your mental input, the moment you start affirming the positive instead of dwelling on the negative, the law switches output. The giant says yes to your new command. The soil grows your new seed. The computer executes your new code. And your life transforms with the same mathematical certainty that 2 + 2 = 4. This is the validation. This is the proof. This is the law in action. The synthesis of power that emerges from Holmes's teachings is this. The no you hear in life is not coming from the universe. It is coming from you. Every rejection, every failure, every closed door is simply the law saying yes to your unconscious belief that you are not worthy, not capable, not deserving. The universe does not withhold anything from you. It cannot. It has no mechanism for denial. It is a blind mechanical force that responds to whatever pattern you impress upon it. If you impress a pattern of limitation, it produces limitation. If you impress a pattern of expansion, it produces expansion. The power is entirely in your hands. The giant is waiting for your command. The only question is, what are you commanding? Holmes spent his entire life trying to awaken humanity to this truth. He saw people suffering needlessly, not because they were being punished by God, not because they were cursed by fate, but because they were unconsciously using the law against themselves. They were affirming their problems with more intensity than their solutions. They were focusing on what they feared with more consistency than what they desired. And the law, being perfectly obedient, was producing exactly what they focused on. The tragedy was not that the law was broken. The tragedy was that people did not know how to use it. They were driving a car without knowing where the steering wheel was. They were operating a machine without reading the manual. The synthesis of power is the realization that you are not powerless. You have never been powerless. You have only been unconscious. You have been using the most powerful force in the universe, the creative mind, without knowing you were using it. And because you were unconscious, you were using it randomly, chaotically, destructively. But now you know. Now you understand the mechanism of the automatic yes. Now you see that the giant always agrees. And with this knowledge comes responsibility. You can no longer blame external circumstances. You can no longer play the victim. You can no longer pretend that your life is happening to you. Your life is happening through you. You are the cause. Reality is the effect. This synthesis also reveals that the universe is not neutral in the sense of being indifferent. It is neutral in the sense of being perfectly responsive. It does not care what you create, but it cares deeply about executing your command with precision. It is like a master craftsman who will build whatever blueprint you provide, whether that blueprint is a palace or a prison. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your blueprint. and the quality of your blueprint is determined by the quality of your thought. Therefore, the ultimate power is not in changing the external world. The ultimate power is in changing your internal world. Change your thought, and the law changes your experience. This is the synthesis. This is the power. This is the truth that sets you free. Holmes also understood that this power is not reserved for the spiritual elite. It is not available only to mystics, saints, or enlightened masters. It is available to everyone because the law is impersonal. It does not require you to be perfect. It does not require you to be sinless. It does not require you to earn it through years of meditation or ascetic practice. It only requires you to use it correctly. A child can flip a light switch and activate electricity. A criminal can plant a seed and grow a tree. The law does not judge. It only executes. This is the democracy of spiritual power. This is the gift that Holmes gave to the world. You do not need to be special to use the law. You only need to be conscious. The message of empowerment that Holmes offers is both simple and profound. The giant is waiting for your command. Stop telling it what you fear. Start telling it what you are. The automatic yes is the most dangerous power in the world if used blindly, but the most benevolent servant if used wisely. You have been given dominion over your own life. You have been given the keys to the kingdom. You have been given access to a law that never fails, never tires, never refuses. The only thing standing between you and the life you desire is your own habitual thought pattern. And that pattern can be changed. It can be changed today. It can be changed right now in this moment. Holmes would tell you that you are not broken. You are not damaged. You are not cursed. You are simply operating with corrupted code, and code can be rewritten. You are simply planting the wrong seeds, and seeds can be changed. You are simply impressing the wrong patterns, and patterns can be corrected. The law does not hold grudges. It does not remember your past failures. It only responds to your present command. Every moment is a new opportunity to impress a new pattern. Every thought is a new seed. Every word is a new decree. You are not bound by your history. You are only bound by your current use of the law. The empowerment also comes from understanding that you are not alone in this process. The entire universe is conspiring to fulfill your command. The law is not a distant, cold mechanism. It is the very substance of reality, and it is always moving, always creating, always producing. When you align yourself with the law through affirmative thinking, you align yourself with the creative power that built galaxies, that sustains stars, that grows forests from single seeds. You are not using your personal willpower to force reality into submission. You are tapping into an infinite power that flows through you the moment you stop resisting it with negative thought. This is the secret of effortless manifestation. You do not create through strain, you create through alignment. Holmes also emphasized that this empowerment is not about escaping life or transcending the physical world. It is about mastering life, about creating a physical experience that reflects your highest vision. Some spiritual teachings tell you to detach from desire, to renounce the material world, to seek only the spiritual realm. Holmes rejected this. He taught that the physical world is the canvas on which the creative mind paints. It is not inferior to the spiritual world. It is the expression of the spiritual world. Therefore, you are meant to create abundance, health, love, and joy in the physical realm. You are meant to demonstrate the power of the law in tangible, visible ways. This is not greed. This is not materialism. This is the fulfillment of your divine nature as a creator. The message of empowerment is also a call to responsibility. You cannot use this knowledge to manipulate others. You cannot use it to harm or control. The law will respond to those intentions, but the harvest will be bitter. What you send out returns to you multiplied. If you use the law to create suffering for others, you will experience suffering yourself. If you use the law to create good for others, you will experience good yourself. This is not morality imposed from outside. This is the natural consequence of living in a universe governed by law. Holmes taught that the highest use of the law is to affirm the good of all, to see perfection in everyone, to hold the vision of a world transformed by conscious, affirmative thinking. When you use the law in this way, you become a force for healing in the world, Holmes would tell you that the time for victimhood is over. The time for excuses is over. The time for blaming circumstances, parents, governments, or fate is over. You now know the truth. You now understand the mechanism. You now have the power. The giant is waiting. The law is ready. The automatic yes is poised to execute your command. The only question remaining is, what will you command? Will you continue to affirm your limitations, or will you start affirming your greatness? Will you continue to plant seeds of fear, or will you start planting seeds of faith? The choice is yours. The power is yours. The responsibility is yours. And the transformation is inevitable the moment you choose to use the law correctly. The challenge I leave you with is what Holmes would call the no negativity diet. For the next 24 hours, you are not allowed to say the words no, can't, or don't. You must rephrase everything into a positive affirmation. If someone asks you to do something you do not want to do, instead of saying I can't, you say, I choose to focus my energy elsewhere. If you catch yourself thinking I don't want to be poor, you immediately rephrase it to I am creating wealth. This is not a game. This is a diagnostic test. It will reveal to you just how much of your language is rooted in negation. It will show you how often you are accidentally commanding the law to produce what you do not want. Most people cannot complete this challenge for even 1 hour. They are so conditioned to think and speak in the negative that it feels impossible to break the pattern. But this is exactly why the challenge is necessary. You must become aware of your habitual negation before you can correct it. You must see how often you are feeding the machine-corrupted code. Holmes would tell you that this 24-hour challenge is a microcosm of the entire spiritual journey. If you can master your language for 1 day, you can master it for a lifetime. And when you master your language, you master the law. And when you master the law, you master your life. The challenge also includes a social component. You must refuse to participate in negative conversations. If someone starts complaining, you do not join them. If someone starts gossiping, you change the subject. If someone starts predicting disaster, you affirm the opposite. This will be uncomfortable. You will be seen as strange, overly positive, or even naive. But Holmes would tell you that you are not being naive. You are being scientific. You are protecting your mental atmosphere from contamination. You are guarding the soil of your subconscious from poisonous seeds. You are maintaining the purity of your code so that the law can produce a clean output. This is not about being rude or dismissive. This is about being disciplined in your use of the most powerful force in the universe. If you complete the 24-hour challenge, extend it to 48 hours, then 72, then a week. Eventually, affirmative thinking will become your default mode. You will no longer have to force it. It will be automatic. And when that happens, your life will transform so rapidly that you will barely recognize it. Opportunities will appear out of nowhere. Problems will dissolve without effort. People will be drawn to you. Resources will flow to you. This is not magic. This is the law responding to your new command. This is the giant saying yes to your greatness instead of your limitation. This is the harvest of the seeds you have been planting with your disciplined, affirmative thought. The final call to action is this: subscribe to Sacred Logic to continue receiving the blueprints of reality that Ernest Holmes left encoded in his teachings. This channel is not entertainment. This is education. This is initiation. This is the transmission of a science that can transform your life if you apply it with precision and discipline. Hit the notification bell so you do not miss a single transmission. Comment below with your commitment. Tell me, I claim the yes. Let the algorithm of the universe know that you are ready to use the law consciously. Let the giant know that you are no longer begging. You are commanding. You are no longer a victim. You are a master. You are no longer unconscious. You are awake. Holmes dedicated his life to awakening humanity to the power of the automatic yes. He saw the suffering caused by ignorance, and he left us a manual for using the law correctly. That manual is not hidden in ancient texts or locked behind secret societies. It is available to you right now. It is in your consciousness. It is in your thought. It is in your word. The universe is waiting for your command. The giant has only one word in its vocabulary: yes. What will you command today? What seeds will you plant? What code will you write? The transformation is not coming. The transformation is here. It begins the moment you claim it. I claim the yes. And so it is.